And we're back here, ladies and gentlemen, with the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series Winter Europe Edition. I'm Nathanius, joined by Zombie Grub, as we make our way through this group. There has been so much StarCraft. How'd you like that last match? We've finally got one that kind of went the distance after a bunch of 2-0s yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. It was a 2-1, and it was super long matches. I thought they were really fun.
Yeah.
But really felt for the Terran at that third game. Just felt trapped in a corner. Couldn't get out. That happens, but now they have a new foe in TvT. So
okay. For some reason, I thought you were talking about Fuffer. For some reason, I was like, I don't know how that came up, but it's okay. Yes, we got TvT coming up as we make our way through this group. Just want to also give a big shout out to everybody tuning in. Hopefully, you guys have been enjoying the broadcast as we get ready to go into this next match. Don't forget to hit us up. Hit us up, Esports StarCraft on Twitter, StarCraft on Facebook. People tweeting with hashtag WCS. Hit us up. We love you guys, and we love to hear all of your extremely relevant and wonderful comments about everything going on in all of these matches. With that being said, you're right, Zombie Grab. It's going to be TvT. We've got souL going against MarineLorD.
Yeah, so the only thing you can blame is that TvT sucks, I suppose. Like, you could always say that if you wanted to. But, legitimately, it's all down to this. Mirror matchup, loser's bracket.
Yeah.
That's
Terran getting eliminated here.
And it does sometimes feel like if the Terrans don't like TvT, which I know a lot of us don't, but hopefully these guys do, that they're already like...
TvT's just really volatile, right? I mean,
exactly.
I expect to see in this matchup a lot of these tank Raven pushes, super common, super popular. Proxies, I feel like have fallen off a little bit.
Yes, I agree. Not too many tier axes. I mean, the factory expand got so popular.
Yeah, everyone does it. Exactly. Everybody opens with the fast Reaper Hellion.
Yep.
It's very good.
It is especially good. And some of the maps are also not great for it. But anyways, who has the best TvT to make it, well, to continue in the group? Not even make it out, you're just continuing. In the top right, as the blue Terran had some struggles versus Raynor, it is MarineLorD.
Tried to make it happen and could not, tragically falling down here. Faces off against our red Terran player in the southwest. He is souL. souL's a pretty cool guy. I'm glad that he's kind of come up in the last 2 or so years, been popping up. Always like having some more foreign Terran competition. But as we were talking about, big things in TvT, the Raven is the ultimate power unit in the early game of Terran versus Terran. And this matchup is still, by and large, very dependent in those, those volatile phases on things like air control, having just a couple of siege tanks to bully for position. And we see a lot of builds that basically revolve around, we talk about the fast factory expand, then you go into the marine tank, you get a Raven early, sometimes 2 Ravens, switch into Vikings, you make a big push. That is how a lot of TvT games start. Those builds are really good, they are very hard to stop, and a single interference matrix or well-placed auto turret can completely turn the tide, and it makes TvT very explosive. Can be frustrating at times too.
Yeah, I think the most frustrating thing about the current TvT is that you feel the need to get a Raven, whereas maybe in the past there's been more like variation, like, no, I can kind of make this work. Not that it is 100% always that. We do see some people not go for the air control and then eventually break through with, more Marines, faster stim type deal. But so much of it is about the Raven and that air control and who can get a decent position in the early game, like literally where their tanks are, can they get up close to the natural or not. Often, sure, there could be some discrepancy made because of such a thing like a factory expand versus a 1-Rax expand, which is the exact situation we have here. But with the caliber of players, it usually doesn't snowball either way.
No. And as you were talking about, the position, literally, on this map, you have that low ground by the natural expansion where the siege tanks can fire from. So you can either kind of go by where you were just showing the front, which is like normal, but that low ground area that you're showing right here, this is a really big target. You have to be super careful. The length of sight blocker, that giant tower, where you'd normally put an Overlord if you were Zerg, that's going to block vision. It's going to allow someone who has air control to let their tanks fire with impunity over towards that natural. And of course, I think another big thing worth pointing out with a lot of the maps in this pool is there's a ton of airspace outside of the mains and whatnot. So it's very easy to doom drop, I think, which is something that we still see a lot of if you're not really on top of where the opponent is. If you get into like bio versus bio, I feel like half my TvTs at least end in base trades.
Yeah. Well, if there's no open opportunity, then it's just...
Yeah, exactly. As soon as you... Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even play mech in this matchup anymore because it's so... the Marines are so important. The drops are so good on these maps. Really,
they are.
You really need to do it.
What's the other... Cyber Forest has it.
Cyber Forest? I think all these maps have like giant, cavernous airspace around the mains.
Yes.
That was, I think it's actually pretty similar on like Kairos Junction and Port Alexander as well. There's not really any maps where it's like, yes, 1 or 2 turrets well placed cut off all the space behind my mains. Like, nope, not on these maps.
Well, we have Raven to Raven, but there really hasn't been a lot of scouting from either player, so this Reaper finally jumps in, gets a good scout, doesn't see the tech lab moving. People, you know, very hesitant to go into Banshees with the popularity of Ravens. MarineLorD, he opened up like what is actually ended up being safer. Like he could have been aggressive with his Reaper and Hellions, but he wasn't. Now he's going to try and do something, but a bunker is done. Cyclone Raven's going to be defensively positioned. This isn't going to do a whole lot, but it is going to finally get him some scouting, which is just entirely nothing right now.
Yeah, this is kind of what we were talking about.
Additional supply depots.
These are very, very, very similar openings. Very standard. There's the Reapers kind of using that cliff to get some harass. Love the Cyclone on the low ground. Can actually lock on to units to try to pressure there. And he's going to try to get his own lock on from the top side. souL pushing that Cyclone back, but good pressure there by the Reapers. Getting a Marine or two, injuring a few of the others, getting 2 SCVs.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the time what you want is to snowball, because these builds also fit very well together, right? We finish your Ravens. We have souL getting a second one. Actually, both players are getting second Ravens. You lift off the starport, swap it with the barracks. Barracks starts Stim, starport starts Vikings. Make your push at Marine tanks, start the game, right?
Yep.
You can throw down 2 more racks behind that if you want to go big bio, or you can get your 3rd command center. Both players are going to get the 3rd command center, and this is it. This is TvT in a nutshell at the moment. Majority of your games that aren't some type of cheese are going to look very similar to this.
Yep. The standard build, and the 30C being on location maybe could have been greedy. They both are doing it. It is a little punished, I suppose, for MarineLorD, but not really. He does also do the swap off just a little bit later to the build, but same idea. And we'll see if they, I mean, if they actually do position, try and get a position over their opponents. They must realize that they both are very good at TvT. They probably do play each other on ladder.
Yep.
MarineLorD have been coming back into StarCraft 2 a while ago at this point, and you know that there is the complication that can occur in TvT, where you can even try and like, you know, do the whole like, you know, pass each other in the night thing, but souL's actually the defensive one in this scenario.
Walking into this means certain death. You have to be so cautious. Oh my goodness, he doesn't have the high ground vision. He's going to step forward. Tanks the siege. There's that interference matrix wasted, I think.
Yeah, I'm wondering if MarineLorD was trying to get a baited interference matrix. Thinking a long con here.
Yeah, that's interesting. Being able to pop that out is really nice. Able to protect the 3rd base. Reaper just going to run into the main, get some scouting.
Yep.
Sees the engineering base, sees the barracks that are being added. These are all very standard things, but it's good to know that your opponent is doing it. We did see MarineLorD, for example, play mech versus Zerg. He's going to play bio here. I think bio is really, really, really the way to play in TvT right now.
Well, I was never a fan of mech and TvT, so I'm glad it's gone this way, but...
Yeah. In an early game, like having Marines versus Hellions, because the Raven interference matrix is such a big thing, like it's almost... You see people delay medevacs even when Stim is done, like a really large amount, because it is so much about the Ravens. There we have interference matrix used to deny both of the other Ravens. It still concerns me because MarineLorD has a ton of energy on his Ravens. I'd like to see him just pull back the Ravens and repair them because they are very low. He has enough interference matrix available to shut down all the tanks of souL.
Oh, that was really close. Yeah, MarineLorD had the better focus fire on the Ravens, so he traded that out for losing control of his Ravens temporarily, and then it was traded actually exactly with Raven to Raven.
Yeah, he just lost one of them.
Yeah, I mean... That was a Liberator. That was a lot of damage.
Big Liberator counter. So this is what we were talking about. Interference matrix comes down, shuts down the 2 tanks on the north side. And this is really big for these units because he can run the Marines in the Cyclone to the west, just barely outside being majority in tank range.
Yeah.
Losing the air fight does hurt because naturally, if he could get those tanks just a little bit further to the left, then this gets really awkward because you ask yourself, how do I get my natural secured? But he doesn't want souL's army to collapse on him, so he'll have to retreat. Cool thing about high-level TvT is we talk about how these builds are so good and these strategies are so strong. Both players do them, and when they execute well, it's very hard for one to kill the other thanks to that defender's advantage in TvT.
Yeah, even with souL messing up with his Raven control there, you know, he didn't actually use all of its energy. It still is a game that's even souL favored. You know, he killed those workers on a very even game, so that does put him ahead. He's got faster upgrades as well, with the 1-1 finishing up. Not substantially so, with like equally timed armories, but still, it's a good position for souL, and he did temporarily have that Viking control. They both should stop building Vikings. The Raven's no longer something you have to find issue with. They're really hard to control as the game goes on, and you get more about, you know, speedily trying to move one way or the other. But the Vikings can always find the extra vision against the tanks and always like really just set in a position. You know, you get a good position with tanks, that's great, but you get it with Vikings as well, and then that's like almost unbreakable.
Yep. Sensor towers have been just seeing more and more use, especially I think on these maps we were talking, like as I mentioned those drops earlier. Sensor towers are just so important. So many TvTs now they end with these big base trades, whereas your army is there and you're like, okay, well, I guess I have to attack because I was outside of his base. And if I run home, his tanks that are in my base will kill my whole army as well as my base. So base trading becomes such a big thing. The tank count really nice here from MarineLorD, by the way. 8 siege tanks versus just 4 from souL. souL is building 2 at a time now, which is nice, but MarineLorD's got a very beefy force at the moment.
Looks like a conscious decision here not to go for a second factory that fast, but rather an additional barracks. 6 barracks to 5. That's interesting. I mean, he does have the stronger tank count for now, but that is usually
oh my god,
it's a combination, isn't it?
This army shows up right here, and this is where TvT gets painful. He's got a great army. The tanks are going to trade some blows, but landing that command center, he just can't do it. The Vikings are going to hit it, and then as soon as it lands, it's going to be in range of all those tanks. MarineLorD needs to pull that back, but he's dealing with this drop on the left side. The Vikings do clean up the medevac. Marines push forward a little bit, but all right, there we go. Command center is going to run home, drop some Marines onto the tanks, trying to force some friendly fire. Almost kills a bunch of them.
Yeah, almost. You know, the Vikings are out of position, but he also knows that he is now down on the Viking count. So I said that they should stop building Vikings, the Ravens no longer in play, but we're actually getting like very quickly, at least in souL's mind, right? He slapped down 2 extra starports. He's looking for ways to actually break a Terran because he might think that he has a bit of a lead here and he needs to actually break him, which you can't do with just Marine tank versus Vikings.
No, at some point, once you get that, if you get the air control and you can hold on to it, you want to make that transition into Liberators. They're still very good versus Bio, but big cleanup here by MarineLorD. Still has his tanks, has those Vikings.
Yeah, if souL thought he had a lead because of that 4th base timing, it is now gone. He lost a substantial amount of army there, and I mean, he's got his own 4 bases. He could remax with both Marine tanks and Vikings too, I suppose, eventually, but he also has to rebuild his medevac count, so a little bit reset there.
So 3-3 is going to start up for souL. Sensor tower built on the southeast now for MarineLorD, as he did lose his main one. He will rebuild the one at his 3rd. Getting those 4th bases, very important. And I do like you bringing up the starports, because I think it could be a pretty key weakness. souL seems to be doing just much better in general, building his infrastructure. MarineLorD took some good fights, but as you mentioned earlier as well, there's just the 1 barracks lead that he has, but a 2nd factory for souL and the extra 2 starports. I do think that Ravens, adding in a few now, gets really big for the interference matrix, but also if you can get a big Marine battle and you can launch that Dorito cannon into the heart of the enemy Marines, you're going to rip them to pieces.
MarineLorD's trying to take advantage of what is not a quite full sensor tower coverage, but doesn't really find too much. That Viking control is very good for MarineLorD. Ooh, okay, there we go. He finds the south open. Actually, no defensive tanks around that 3rd base. This tower is going to be burned down. He grabs a tank and then gets out of there. I guess we can't help.
Interference matrix does turn off the jets on those medevacs, but only gets the one that was empty. Fortunately, there's a big counterattack drop coming in now from souL into that 3rd base. The tank is going to get cleaned up. The Vikings and the Marines working on the medevacs. and the reinforcements should be able to clear that out. Don't think souL killed too much. Mostly the tank, I guess, was the big pick off there. And souL is kind of running his army around. Is he trying to collapse on MarineLorD's force outside of his base?
souL's army is actually not that quality. He's already been stimmed once, I think, and then again.
There's no medevacs here.
Exactly, there's no medevacs. He's producing a lot with those extra starports. He really would have preferred, I think, to already been on to his own Viking production, getting that back with those Ravens as we saw. And instead, he's forced to replace the basic TvT composition.
Being able to build 5 medevacs once is pretty nice, though. Brings the rest of the bio over here. He does have, okay, never mind, Raven's dead, but he does have a good spread around these tanks, and even with their splash will not be enough to kill these Marines. souL mops up. This is TvT, baby.
Yeah.
Lots of big runs, big fights in the middle. I think breaking open those rocks is probably a good idea for either of them, giving themselves more space to maneuver. The fact that both of these guys keep pushing through this center, like DMZ, I feel like it's going to become soon. Very, very sweat, you know?
Yeah, the Viking control is just so good. He's really good about sniping medevacs too, using their range to his advantage, keeping most of them alive, even though they're really, really injured. And he is now also slapping down his own extra starports, finally that extra factory. So actually a really cool idea perhaps MarineLorD had, but we have such a back and forth game. I don't want to get into it too much. The point is, eventually it's more about those positional units, and Liberators are on the way, along with additional upgrades.
Oh, I love this. High-sec auto-tracking, really big if your opponent doesn't have Liberator range. Getting those missile turrets to 8 range is it's just one of those things that really gets inside of a player's head, because it is a really important upgrade for keeping back the air pressure, and also if you're trying to be aggressive with putting like missile turrets out in the field.
Yeah. We have the Raven upgrade on the way. Like souL is he really wants to get to that stage where he can get Ravens and actually use them, you know, to break siege tank lines, or in this case even maybe Liberator lines. But he always gets them sniped. They're not particularly fast building. They need attack lab too. This is a great push. We got a couple of tanks here too, in case it was just Marines reinforcing. But actually, this might be enough with the concave.
Getting that orbital would be pretty big. Now the Liberators are going to come out, and he sees those. Liberators are really good against bio, just because they one-shot the Marines. As weird as it is, it's like, well, you don't trust. It's not just good against mech, because sometimes if your siege tanks are able to cover your own ground, your air units from those Marines on the ground, then the Liberators can do a great job at picking off everything below.
Yeah, exactly. They are the final step of TvT evolution, I suppose. Well, maybe Ravens could be argued, but Liberators really add that extra bit of positioning. Now these Marines are doing more.
I thought he's going to shut down the Corvette reactor research. Would be pretty big if he could.
Maybe. Oh, well, I think so. I think it's going to burn. Marines have got bigger things to worry about. He repaired that command center only to have it lifted off again. Ravens do finally interact here.
Wow.
With the interference matrix. No tanks.
The only tank that was able to siege got interference matrix, so pushed back. Almost would have loved to see him try the anti-armor missile there, but still looks good. Marines move into the natural, pick up a few more SCVs, going to lift up, scoot back over towards the main base. Ravens continue to come out. Without Corvid Reactor, though, he's going to have to wait a little bit longer to use abilities on those Ravens.
Yeah, very back and forth, both showing a lot of strengths. You know, MarineLorD maybe taking some better engagements during that mid-game, but then souL really starting to out-micro with those drops and the out-position with his movement on the map. He's not really like over-expanding back at home, but we do have now 2 extra command centers finishing up, so he can start taking the map entirely.
Yep, look at this, trying to clear up that air army. This is going to allow those Liberators to push this back. I'd love to see a Fusion Core. Liberator range is really good. Also a big fan of that upgrade. As these Libs push the tanks a little bit over here, these Marines come back once again. They will get smacked down. All the Marines are at 3-3 for both sides. There's the anti-armor missile, so that reduces the Marines' armor from 3 to 0, which does have big implications for those fights against other Marines. When you try to dive in on the Liberator, still picks off a lot of the Marines. Doing a great job so far here with the defense is MarineLorD, but he's going to lose that base in the southeast corner.
Yep. Can't do much about that. They both have been trading so back and forth that no one really has that much of a bank, but souL did invest 8 in minerals in the command centers and looks like he'll be able to get those set up, whereas MarineLorD actually almost loses a second command center.
Oh, this one should just be dead, though. There's nothing here to save this.
You'd think so. Well, he has his Viking with the
he can run Marines.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, well, yeah.
Okay, 1 cheeky tank. Well, the other 2 Marines still did make it there. I think they can do it. I believe in you.
SCVs?
Trust yourself.
Do anything SCVs? Oh, he's going to try to break it.
Yeah, he's going to drop everything on top of this with the medevacs. A couple of them don't unload, it looks like, which is a little bit awkward, but Yeah, eating those couple tank shots, I guess, really did make a big difference. MarineLorD is able to clean this up, and I guess he'll save that base and land it. I did think that souL would be able to get it, but he's really stretched himself thin.
Yeah, this base is... It's still got some mining because it's been lifted so many times. Still useful. Still he sees that there's a few Liberators to deal with, and souL is down temporarily in supply. He has finally gotten at least this base up, with this one maybe waiting for an orbital or something. So he should have the ability to remake that. So they're still very close to maxed out. We finally have that fusion core you're talking about to help the Liberators here, as MarineLorD has been dominant with the Liberators.
Liberator range is really good. I won't lie. Battle cruisers are actually really good against bio as well. But since both players have Ravens, anti-armor missile does allow Marines to destroy the BCs as well. So that's a very expensive tech path to go down.
Yes, yeah, and this wasn't really a passive late game TvT.
No. It's going to be for Lib range. I think given the game circumstance, it's fine. It really just comes down to the Vikings at the end of the day. You get the air superiority, then the Liberators siege over everything, and the game just ends. But great counterattack here by souL once again. Both players being stretched to the limit, as that orbital command does get blown up.
He also loses the fusion core, but he had already started Liberator range, so that's all he wanted it for. souL saves his third CC, and while that location is mined out, basically, that is still an extra mule, and we're still in a rather tight race. This fight with Interference Matrix and the Liberators actually don't even have to be in Liberator mode. The Marines take care of all the tanks, and souL once again takes a bit of a bad fight there.
Yep, that was a really great pick-off there. Pushing into 2 tanks instead of 4, really big difference. The Raven is, it's just become one of the most integral components of Terran versus Terran, especially, they're useful in the early game when you're just kind of like teching up and being safe. Then you don't see them as much in the mid game because you're getting all your upgrades to your buyout, but then you get back to that late game and the Ravens start to pay for themselves in spades once again. This base is going to get destroyed by MarineLorD as he continues to make his way west down the field, but TvT always ends the same way, Zombie Grub. I hate to break it to you. People trying to trade bases.
Yeah. Well, souL seems especially like, he's the one that's really forcing the issue. Either he's a little desperate because he's caught out of position, or he just wants to be the one that's in control, forcing mistakes from MarineLorD. But it's hard to do. With MarineLorD's able to consciously, carefully use his Ravens and Liberators, he would clean this all up. He doesn't even have to again.
souL actually has to take this fight, though, because Liberator range is done. If he just runs his Marines into the main, then the Libs will siege up on his tanks anyway, blow them all up. Not too much he can do there. souL's already floated his main command center around, trying to take another expansion on the bottom side of the map. So the pressure is on. Both players still very close on supply. souL's got a bit more SCVs to work with. Not sure that that's the end of the world this late in the game, but just trying to find the differences here, and it is so close. I think one of the things that might be a tipping point here is that there is the vehicle armor for MarineLorD, so his air units are a little more durable, and that +2 attack. So his Vikings and Liberators should be able to trade exceedingly well if souL were to be able to even build air units anymore.
Yeah, well, to souL's credit, I think that's why he's been on the map so much more and kind of being the one to initiate potential base trades, is that he's realized he hasn't been able to get to that Viking war or the Liberators, the Ravens, but trying to get those concaves and pounce on top of MarineLorD's more positional army ends up working out, and MarineLorD taps out.
Yeah, TvT, man. You have to be able to jump on your opponent like that.
Yeah.
Big thing to note there, at the end, MarineLorD had a Raven with a decent bit of energy. Didn't use it. You have to do so many things when you're taking a fight like that. You got to focus fire the tanks, spread the Marines, use the Raven to focus fire down with the interference matrix, and man, souL just kept cool and calm.
Yes, yeah. That's why that almost spray trade, the second one that happened, it was like, well, if souL's stuck in a position, if he's stuck in a natural, stuck in a main, well, then MarineLorD can calmly use his Raven, get the concave, and that's what happened. But then, in the middle of the map, he couldn't calmly use all those really important units.
And TvT is still very much like that. If you get caught with your tanks unsieged by Stim Bio, they're going to destroy everything. It's going to be bad. It's going to be ugly.
Yeah. So that was a really fun game. I think, as I said in the game, they both seem to be playing to their strengths. I mean, MarineLorD, I think at one point was known as the micro guy everywhere at once, right? That's kind of how foreign Terrans, Terrans in general, make a mark for themselves. But I feel like with the first TvZ from him as well, it was more of a slower mech style, more centered around good quality units. That's how I played that TvT, where souL was in his TvP so much more about being everywhere once, getting that mid-game damage. You can see the styles and the personalities shine. Got
a lot done, and as we get ready to go into our second game, you like watching bases get blown up? Well, you can watch your base get blown up in style. Check out the wonderful Orbital Command Center skin and the Special Forces theme in the current StarCraft 2 War Chest, which you can level up just by watching this stream. That's right. Are you such a busy person? You're trying to do 8 different things while watching this broadcast and don't have time to level up your War Chest? Just connect your Twitch account to your Battle.net account and get EXP just for hanging out with us today. We are in the lobby. I'm going to tell everybody go, 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 go. And we'll get into that next map in just a moment. Beyond Kairos Junction, Zombie Grub.
Yes, quite. Kairos Junction, a very popular first map choice.
Yeah.
This time second. All right.
Yeah.
It's the old map. One with what are the other maps here that are?
Fort Alexander and Automaton.
Yeah, Automaton. You don't actually see that much of.
Yeah. Well, Automaton's kind of a weird one, right? Like
Yeah.
you have the main base is like extremely exposed to certain types of attacks and drops. So I guess I can see why players don't like it as much. And the natural, there's no ramp leading into it. All these other maps are extremely standard in terms of like what level of defense you can bring.
Yeah, but it says, you know, I mean, with the veto system that they're allowed to, kind of mold their way that the best ofs go into form. We of course see it sometimes. It just seems one of the less chosen ones. Yeah. Anyways, Kairos Junction, in the bottom right, taking that last game. Kind of surprisingly, I mean, it was like back, forth, and then boom, suddenly someone won. It is the blue Terran, souL.
Yeah, it was interesting. He went for all the tech infrastructure for his opponent and did not end up winning off the back of it. It was actually this guy who tried to use the tech structures. Let's see what he can do in game number 2 as he is down 0-1 in our elimination match. He's MarineLorD.
Once again, open up with a double gas. Likes his factory to expand, I'm assuming, anyways. You don't see a lot of those 1-1-1s, like 2 completions to the starport.
No. It feels like if the opponent goes for like one of the defensive Cyclone builds, it can shut down pretty much any early attack. So you get the fast Reaper and the fast Hellion pretty much so that you just don't die to like a proxy Reaper all in. And that's if you try to do like a 1-Rax expand or gasless, like you usually will die to like a 3-Rax Reaper build. So you open up with the Reaper and the Hellion and then just take your expand, and then you go for the 1-1-1. But playing one base in TvT has really fallen off.
Yes, it has. Cyclone is a good coverall unit, and the Raven as well.
Which is weird to think about, because we definitely still felt a bit of that beforehand, too. I guess one base TvT is kind of like, at this point, it's just more of a relic of like Heart of the Swarm, maybe.
Yeah. Well, there was the whole period of like when box wars actually did happen because you cracked her.
Yeah, but even the box wars weren't off of one base, or at least they weren't typically off of one base.
I remember
unless you did the proxy.
Yeah, I remember a lot of all-ins that were using that. But yeah, you're right. So. Yeah, not too much anymore. Maybe.
I will say I don't miss the box wars though.
Oh no, I don't either. I never played them. So.
I've had quite a few. The player who micros more loses.
Yeah. Well, yes, that was the dumbest part about them.
Yeah.
But then it was also such a weird pacing. You expanded so much faster than usual. You're doing everything right. But anyways, it doesn't happen anymore. But I was going to say, like, sometimes you see people try and throw in, like, a proxy starport if they really are going to commit to a 1-1-1. You could also do it off a 1-Rax expand if you wanted to. But these guys had a rather straight-up game last time. Again, they're doing the very similar build orders. MarineLorD couldn't find any damage, really, with his opener. He wasn't really aggressive with it. He found something. That was still a cool use of the positioning. It doesn't really exist, though, on this map.
Yeah, I think this map is like specifically measured so that space underneath the natural doesn't reach a mineral patch.
Yes, yeah.
There was another series where this happened.
Yeah,
was it
yesterday. It was.
Yeah.
The tank was just like, right there is its range. That was nice. I said, kudos to the map maker. Unfortunately, I don't know exactly what.
Well, this is the position that you want to take instead right here by this Reaper. If you can nudge yourself in there, you're in range of the production too, and cutting off the ramp means that if you can get some sort of elevator play, or honestly, land Vikings, there's a lot that you can do. I still expect to see very similar setups as compared to the last game, where it's going to be the Raven, the Marines, the tanks, and then some sort of push out with like 2 tanks, 12 Marines, 2 Ravens, and 2 Vikings with 2 more Vikings on the way.
I wonder if souL did this type of wall off specifically because he saw 3 Reapers last game. Well, like, his units are here anyways.
This is the new way to wall off, because you don't want to wall off the actual ramp itself, because, as I said, that makes you more vulnerable to the tanks. With this setup, the tanks should be able to, like, if they really do wedge themselves in, like the depots on the bottom might get picked off, but they're a lot harder to get to than if you'd built everything at the actual top of the ramp itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. It's, you don't get to often change up how you wall off.
Yeah, this is how Protoss players wall off here, too, against Reapers.
We do not have a Cyclone for souL. He goes right into a tank here. And he is not going to swap off the starport either. So a bit of a mix-up, more about that, not about that positional control that he didn't even get last game. He was the one that was more about the Marines and the faster sim. To see him actually play, make a build order into that style is not too shocking. And I guess also assuming that MarineLorD will play a little slower regardless of his stronger positional units. It's still more defensive. souL's not going to be bopped by those tank pushes we were talking about. Well, hopefully not. Hopefully his stim and his Marine count will be high enough by the time it comes over.
No, I mean, it doesn't really look like either player is like seriously considering it because of the delay on like the reactor even here from MarineLorD, where he's like, all right, he is building it now, but I don't think he would have any Marines to try and do an attack with anyway. The faster third is his choice this game.
Exactly. So souL's going to have the control over the game, but it's also like to MarineLorD's credit there defensively, his third C will already be down in location.
And MarineLorD is going to go mech. You see the armories starting up.
Okay. So, I mean, we got a classic Terran versus Terran, bio versus mech with a straight up macro game.
I love that. The scan that just ended makes it look very much so like he's playing an extremely normal style. Then lifts up the barracks. He's like, all right, you didn't see the armories with the scan. Really nice for MarineLorD there, because souL, you want to know if your opponent is going to be playing some sort of mech build. It's really crucial, especially since mech builds are just so insanely vulnerable at the start of the game. This little pressure with the Cyclones means so much. Every siege up that gets forced, because you talk about that third command center he got so fast, every siege up that buys him a bit of time is so important, because a couple of interference matrix completely shuts down the only units in this army that can deal with the Marines, and then the Marines just stim an A move through the Cyclones, Reapers, and Hellions.
souL might be a little suspicious. With like a Marauder being built, too.
He built 2. Maybe.
Yeah.
He wouldn't get tech labs on his barracks, extra barracks, until he gets to 5, right? So
right, exactly. But it's one of those things where he's like, maybe it's still a question mark. Because MarineLorD, obviously showing it versus Raynor mech is one thing, but he also, I think, does mech often enough in TvT that souL might be like, I don't really trust what he scouted.
I'm sure there's a ladder pedigree here that we're not aware of as well between the two of these players.
Yeah, but anyways, like regardless of if he knows right now, I was going to say he's going to be the one providing pressure, so he'll be figuring it out before MarineLorD is truly comfortable. You're right, like it's a very vulnerable style in the early game. He's still vulnerable as souL realizes like, hey, that's tanks, that's not Marines, and he'll still try and find those points.
There's 4 tanks. There's 4 tanks on the map. The Ravens have enough energy to use interference matrix on all of them. So you have to be so careful, because the Cyclones are not going to stop the Stim Marines. And this is where MarineLorD's Ravens become important, because it's more important for MarineLorD to use interference matrix on souL's Ravens. Oh. Ouch. Yeah, Cyclones die fast to tanks, by the way.
Yes, they do. So that was a little bit of scouting, as well as the chance to snipe a Raven now gone from MarineLorD. Well, I mean, he's still got Vikings, but it's going to be tough. I mean, it's tough for both of them. With his units all in the correct position, MarineLorD has enough to hold. It's when souL has the ability to maybe fake a drop or actually even do a successful drop, because we're not quite there that both of them are getting a lot of sag defense. In fact, souL doesn't even really have to. But MarineLorD eventually will want to place those down.
This is really good for MarineLorD, by the way. The more time he gets here, the better. He's already past, I think, the point of peak vulnerability, where he could have just been killed by a straight-up attack. Now his 1-1 is finishing. He's got his extra couple of factories coming in. And MarineLorD's actually mixing in some Liberators, I feel, a bit prematurely into this, because he feels, I would imagine, that he has such air control, he can use Liberators. And, oh my goodness! One of the Ravens gets sniped!
Yeah, worth. This is just the bio.
Burns anti-armor missile there. Wow, that's a huge mistake.
Yeah, it is. Just leaving his air units there.
It's like Ravens cost 200 gas, but a Raven with 200 energy is worth gold.
It's a little bit awkward. The Liberators are going to do some harassment, actually. Maybe souL's too busy dealing the pressure to remember that, but his drop does successfully get into the natural, or basically successfully. I mean, it's still going on. And they got 7 SCVs. This little position here is going to deny a 6th gas. That's important.
Yeah, oh my god, this is why I beat this map, actually.
Oh, there you go.
Well, the last season. I actually only play on the new maps this season. But yes, that spot is actually really annoying on the third base. These Marines being a pain in his side. And you know what? Just using the Hellbats, not the fastest chasers of these units. He doesn't have Blue Flame either. So even the Hellions can't do too much. Liberator Harass is nice, on point, buying a lot of time for MarineLorD. This might be what keeps him in the game in the long run if he can continue to get a little bit of work done here.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of SCVs killed by those Liberators.
I mean, it went from just a pure better situation for souL to a little bit of a trade. But souL is, you know, with the denial of the 6th gas too, you can really see that very, very apparent with MarineLorD, because he also had this gas denied and just hasn't replaced them either. Yep. So his production certainly has slowed. They're not depending on Hellions to survive the game. So souL has found himself in a good position. He's already up 1-0, and this is the, you know, elimination match. So MarineLorD's got to just calm down, take a breath, try and continue the slow build up towards that maxed out mech army, which does get better than Bio's army. That's why we see a transition prepared for souL.
The way to play around this for souL is you need those guerrilla tactics. You got to swing around, get some big snipes. Retake air control is another option, and then, you know, use ranged liberators since Hellions and tanks are never going to kill them. But pushes the command center up. Ooh, huge anti-armor missile.
Yeah, I thought he might have died on it, but maybe, you know, kind of like, oh, maybe I can get the tanks, and then realizing now it's not going to work out. So MarineLorD's going to be able to secure the 4th base. He's gotten his gases back up, maybe another missile turret to the left. Still no protection to the top side, but a sensor tower. It's still a situation where souL, if you really want to push the issue and just do drops, you could. But it's more, I think, about like making sure that he keeps tabs on MarineLorD.
Yeah, you want to
try
to out economy him as well. Take as many bases as you can. And with the double air upgrades, like, yeah, you just take the big air control. You do have the option to go battle cruisers, which, if you can win the original air battle cruisers actually become a great way to close out versus mech, assuming that you don't, you know, let your opponent sit back and build 40 Vikings of their own.
That was interference pictures on every single Viking. That was
a good grab.
It was almost a fantastic just domination of the air battle. It turns out, like, okay-ish. MarineLorD is going to have to go back into the Viking production pretty hard here. He doesn't have an extra starport, can't really afford it quite yet, so he's going to have to add on that static defense.
I do like Thors here, though. Thors are very weird. This is something that we haven't seen a crazy amount of since the patch changed, but at least in the games that I've been playing, those Thors in single target mode, it is very hard to have Vikings spot against your opponent now because the Thors can poke them from so far away, and Vikings are just generally so fragile. It's a really weird interaction when you're trying to hold that vision over the long range. But here we go, sieging up is souL onto that planetary fortress in the center of their map on MarineLorD. This should force him. He's got to do something. As long as he keeps scanning, he can just wail away at these.
Yeah, I see MarineLorD adding on more missile turrets, so he doesn't just get pounced on by the supreme Viking capsule.
Interference matrix on the SCV. Just so you guys know, you cannot build stuff with SCVs that are interference matrix. You cannot repair with them either.
That's such a tiny little thing. Didn't really do anything with it, but that's so cool.
No, I don't know, maybe he was just trying to show everybody in Twitch chat that that's a thing you can do.
Yeah, sure. MarineLorD is finally understanding the scope of souL's economy as he gets some harassment to the left and right, but even missing this base, and just has to assume that this base is taken. More command centers. souL is really playing a very nice anti-mech game. It's not over yet. MarineLorD's army is still vulnerable.
Liberator range is going to be the big deciding factor, right? As he continues to close these areas off, pushing into this is really hard. Ever since the Thor change, actually, when they got the damage lowered, Liberators do beat them 1 versus 1 now.
This did not go well at all. Interference pitch line of Thors. Yeah. They were going to attempt to help the Vikings, and then they just totally couldn't, and now the Liberators come in. souL still has a decent bio or ground army, tank bio army to support too. As those tanks are on siege, he's going to grab a few.
Yep, and you know the other thing is you force these Thors to get built. Suddenly all those Marauders that you were building originally as a bio player, their value skyrockets, and he pulls back. He's like, yep, okay, the Thors aren't going to kill these Liberators. Thors take forever to kill Liberators now. Gives him a lot of time to kill the tanks, and then as the army becomes more and more Thor heavy, you just go back into Marauders. And honestly, Liberators are still good there as well.
Yeah, that was a portion of MarineLorD's army, so while that looked really bad, I mean, MarineLorD still has that survival supply. He can still hold on. but he is just being dominated. Like, the map is going completely to souL.
He's got so many bases.
Yep, he's got a big bank. He's got some decent upgrades. He actually tried to get a little low on them.
This is how you force the other player to attack into you as well. It's like, oh yeah, save my tanks. Yes, well, you can't mine this base anymore. The entire command center is encircled by that Liberator.
Yep. Just can't save it. I'm surprised he even goes back to try and repair it. I guess his Thors are in position now.
Well, the tanks are focusing down the planetary, so the Thors are able to get those hits off. But then you just come in from the other side, and now you've got so many Liberators. This is once again unbreakable.
MarineLorD has also been unable to do any type of damage to souL, so souL's just been able to focus entirely on these fights. Once again, taking one with a bio. As the tanks were not siege, Liberators come forward. There's so many of them that the Thors cannot take them down.
Nope, no, too many Liberators, and Liberators do insane damage. GG, souL takes the 2-0, eliminating MarineLorD from WCS Winter.
Yeah, that's too bad. I mean, MarineLorD was a huge fan favorite for a long time. We always love seeing players come back as well, really resurgence in the last year. But
in TvT, especially that second game, it is so hard to come back when you lose air control, especially when you're playing mech like that. Because I guess I talked about the Thor's range is good for kind of pushing back some of those units, but once you get ranged Liberators, then the Thors are... Like, in the old days, I think the Thor had that damage bonus versus armored, and they could plow through Liberators. Like, you could march a Thor into a Liberation Zone and kill the Liberator, which you can't do anymore. So it's very difficult to break out of those strangleholds, especially when there's other units that are going to support them, like those siege tanks and the Marines and the Ravens. Very well played by souL. Loved the decision-making.
Yes.
And it was also nice to see a little bit of a mix-up from both players in that. In terms of the openings, we didn't have that same Raven tank Marine push from both of them. Yeah,
I mean, hindsight, you know, it would have been more fun, I suppose, if MarineLorD had done bio again, because that first game was
first game was really good.
But that second game really was just souL got that position and then just kept with it and didn't make any bad decisions, which I think is really the killer of a lot of bio players versus mech, because they feel that they have an advantage, or they think that I have to be aggressive or something along those lines, and souL just played it like he knew exactly how to defeat mech.
Yep, did a really good job of it. So that concludes our third match here of the day for WCS Europe. And we do have our winners match coming up next. The loser of our next series between Raynor and DNS will fall down to play in the decider against souL to see who makes it out in second place. That is what's coming up next, ladies and gentlemen. Some ZVP action. It's going to be Raynor against DNS. We'll see you after the break.